The President of the Republic of South Africa is the head of state and head of government of the Republic of South Africa. The President directs the executive branch of the government and is the Commander-in-Chief of the South African National Defence Force. From 1961 to 94, the head of state was called the State President. The President is elected by the National Assembly, the lower house of Parliament, and is usually the leader of the largest party, which has been the African National Congress since the first multiracial election was held on 27 April 1994. The Constitution limits the President's time in office to 2 5-year terms. The first President to be elected under the new Constitution was Nelson Mandela. The incumbent is Cyril Ramaphosa, who was elected by the National Assembly on 15 February 2018 following the resignation of Jacob Zuma. Under the interim constitution, although there have been no appointments of opposition politicians to the post of Deputy President, since the President is required to be a member of the National Assembly at the time of his election. Upon his election, he immediately resigns his seat for the duration of his term. The President may be removed either by a motion of no confidence or an impeachment trial. The office of the President, and the roles that come with it, were established by Chapter 5 of the Constitution of South Africa, which a constituent assembly formed upon the dissolution of apartheid state policy. A number of manifestations of the office have existed. Aspects of these offices exist within the presidency today. The executive leadership of the British colonies of Natal and the Cape of Good Hope were invested in their governors. Likewise, it was invested in the presidents of the Boer republics of the Transvaal and the Orange Free State. Alternating sovereignty as a result of wars culminated in the Vereeniging Treaty signed in which concluded the South African War. The Union of South Africa, a British dominion, was established on 31 May 1910 with the British monarch as titular head of state, represented by a viceroy, the Governor-General. Upon the declaration of the Republic of South Africa on 31 May 1961, the office of State President was created. It was originally a ceremonial post, but became an executive post in 1984 when a new constitution abolished the post of Prime Minister and transferred its powers to the State President. South Africa has a distinctive system for the election of its president. Unlike other former British colonies and dominions who have adopted a parliamentary republican form of government and those that follow the Westminster system, South Africa's president is both head of state and head of government and commander-in-chief of the South African National Defence Force. Contrary to presidential systems around the world, the President of South Africa is elected by the Parliament of South Africa rather than by the people directly. He is thus answerable to it in theory and able to influence legislation in practice as head of the majority party. The President is elected at the first sitting of Parliament after an election, and whenever a vacancy arises, the President is elected by the National Assembly, the lower house of Parliament. From among its members, the Chief Justice must oversee the election. Once elected, a person is no longer a member of the National Assembly. They must then be sworn in as President within 5 days of the election. Should a vacancy arise, the date of a new election must be set by the Chief Justice, but not more than 30 days after the vacancy occurs. The Constitution has thus prescribed a system combining both parliamentary and presidential systems. In a unique manner, only Botswana and a few other countries use a similar system. Between 1996 and 2003, Israel combined the two systems in an opposite way, with direct elections for the post of Prime Minister. Although the presidency is the key institution, it is hedged about with numerous checks and balances that prevent its total dominance over the government. As was the case in many African countries, the presidential term is 5 years, with a limit of 2 terms. Thus the electoral system attempts to prevent the accumulation of power in the president, as was during apartheid or in many other African countries. According to Chapter 5 of the Constitution, the President can only exercise the powers of his or her office while within the Republic of South Africa. Should the President be outside of the country, or unable to fulfill the duties of the office, they may appoint an acting president. The presidential vacancy should be filled first by the deputy president, then cabinet minister selected by the president, then a cabinet minister selected by the cabinet, and finally by the Speaker of the National Assembly. The president is the head of state, head of government and commander-in-chief of the South African National Defence Force. The rights, responsibility,